It began on the Skyway Bridge, which is in Florida. And on this Skyway Bridge, I began to pay attention to the waters because I noticed that the waters were really, really high. And I was like, why are the waters that high? Are there tidal waves coming in? Like, what is wrong with the water? Because I noticed that the water was very high compared to the bridge. And those who know the Skyway Bridge know that the Skyway Bridge is huge. It is a very tall bridge in Florida. And the Lord had me pay attention to the water in the dream. And I remember I was riding in the car with my auntie and my mother, and this huge wave, it was a tsunami, this huge water began to rise up, and it splashed down on the bridge. And immediately I knew that it was tsunami, and I knew that it came because of God's wrath. Because I had been asking the Lord, this is aside from the dream, I had been asking the Lord for weeks to reveal to me what is going to be happening, because there was a lot of people on YouTube saying that the tsunami was going to happen to the coastlines in Florida, which I live in Florida. So I know that the Lord wouldn't just allow me to go astray not knowing what's going to happen. So I asked him myself, and this is confirmation that it is going to happen, and it's going to happen soon, and when we least expect it, it's going to happen. But anyways, back to the dream. The wave hit the bridge, and it hit my auntie's car, and she stopped, and she said, "What is that? What was that?" And I said, and immediately, as soon as the water hit the car, I started panicking, like hyperventilating. I said, "Mom, we gotta pray, we gotta pray, we gotta pray." She was like, "Honey, it's too late to pray." She was like, "Whatever God has, it's already established. Now, we just gotta have faith in him that he just gonna pull us through this." She knew in the dream too that it was because of God's wrath towards Florida, because Florida is very, anyways. But yes, in the dream, I tried to pray with her, and she was just like, "You gotta have faith. You just gotta know your spirit that he's gonna protect you." So I remember my auntie saying, she was like, he's protecting us. He's gonna protect us from it. And to remind you that in a dream, we were at the beginning of going onto the bridge, and we got to the top, and there was more and more waves. This huge tsunami wave came in and kept hitting the car, kept hitting the bridge, kept hitting the car and the bridge, and the car that I was in. And I remember saying to myself, what is this? Those waves were so tall. I have never seen that much water in my life. The waves were huge. And there's a lot of people saying that it's false prophecies about the tsunami. No, that tsunami is coming. And I know it is because I asked the Lord myself, and he gave me confirmation after seeking his face diligently about that topic. And he gave me answers to it. And I don't know what this means. I really don't know what this means, but in a certain part of the dream, I looked out into the ocean, and I saw an uprooted tree, meaning the tree was literally taken out of the ground, and it started spinning around in circles. I have no idea what that means. I think that's symbolic for something. It has to be symbolic. But there was this tree spinning around. I thought it was a tornado for some reason, but when I got close to it and I really looked at it, it was a tree spinning around. I have no idea what that means, but I remember there was another wave that came up, and it was about to hit the bridge. This was like the biggest wave I have ever seen in my life. And right before it happened, my dream ended.
The second part of my dream happened right after I saw the completed pyramid. The Statue of Liberty was hit by a huge tsunami that completely destroyed it. All I saw was the statue being submerged by a tsunami that looked to be twice its size, a wall of water that seemed to have the potential to destroy the entire city. I did not see the destruction of the rest of New York, but I imagine the tsunami would have caused havoc throughout the city and perhaps beyond, depending on its force.
Come flying to the sky. I was just going to share with you a dream I actually had back at the end of January. I haven't posted it yet, but I saw that a lot of other people were having similar dreams, so I thought I'd put mine up there too. I had a dream that I was in a large city, and I was driving in a car with my husband and some friends and also my kids. And we were driving down a main road, and we looked off through an intersection onto another street, and we saw in the distance this huge pile of debris. It was like almost as high as skyscrapers. It was just, there it was. And you know, in that moment of confusion when something is out of place and you're like, what's going on? What happened? Why is there all this stuff, this junk piled over there? And you knew something had happened, but you were in that moment of what happened instead of like, let's run. So we're standing there looking at all this huge pile. And I remember specifically there was like an ocean liner or some kind of huge boat at the crest of this huge pile of debris. So I knew I was near the coast somewhere, and this boat had been washed up as well as all this other stuff. And we saw, as we were looking, that the top of the crest of this debris, it buckled like this, and then water started pouring over and through to where we were. So we look at our driver and we're like, go as fast as you can, you know. So our driver, I don't remember who it was, they were driving as fast as they can, trying to outrun this water that was pouring in and pouring through this huge heap of rubble. And I remember, you know, you're in this panic state because you know that this water is catching up to you. And the water came and swept up our car, and I felt our car rise as the water grabbed it, and I also felt the water coming into the car. And it was an awful feeling because I knew that my kids were drowning in the back seat. You know, I knew that my friends were dying, and I felt the water coming up on me as well, and I felt it, and I woke up as soon as it reached my mouth where I would have suffocated. It was a very vivid dream, and I've been putting it off for obviously a few months now to post it. But since so many people were other people were posting theirs, I was like, yeah, I'll post it anyway. I had made a picture of kind of what I'd seen, and I'll post it here. And that's all. Thanks for watching.
In this dream, I saw this huge wave, and it was heading towards American shores. This wave was, and it was coming in. And then I began to tell Stan in this dream, so it goes to the second dream, and I told Stan, I said, I saw it coming, Stan, because I'm thinking I'm awake, but I'm still dreaming, okay? He says, well, how tall was it? And I said, it was 20 stories tall. I heard the Lord say it's 20 stories tall. He says, don't you mean 20 feet? And I said, no. I said, the Lord says it's 20 stories tall. About that time in this dream, we got located on this huge ship. And Stan's in the front of the ship. He's guiding the ship. And he's like got this microphone that could be heard all around. And he's telling all these other ships in the area to help block the tsunami.
I don't belong here. I never saw the sun, the path I walk, the blood-stained walls, the lines of chalk on the floor. It's getting so hard. I never saw the backlash when the tide began to rise. can't remember the way it was when everything felt right. My mouth held shut and I sealed tight with control. So I remember on the inside I found a dark infernal place I don't want to face anymore. I won't stop feeding the pain. My heart's just the same as before.
There was a warning that it was coming, and he saw it was coming, and he wanted to help warn so it wouldn't do the devastation. As he's guiding and getting all these ships, there were different size ones. I mean, there were some fisherman ships, there were some little bitty boats, there were some huge yachts, there were some like cruise ships type size, those kind of things. And Stan was trying to get them to line up so it would try to block that wave so it wouldn't make as much damage. And as Stan's kind of guiding these ships and getting in the right order, he goes down this small waterway, kind of like one that's entering into the ocean. And as he goes down this small waterway, he sees someone down there on a small boat, and he starts yelling at him, "Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go." And I said, "No, Stan, no, wait a minute." I said, "He's leading someone to the Lord. Listen, you can hear him leading someone to the Lord." And he goes, "Oh, okay, all right, I'll leave him alone for a little bit. He's leading someone to the Lord. That's what we need. That's what we need." He was like all excited. Okay, finally, somebody's paying attention. So as he guides these ships, I'd say about 20 or so, on this waterfront, trying to break the tsunami, all he could do is keep it from being total devastation. The interpretation is that huge disaster is prevalent. And I believe that probably the Lord did show me a tsunami. And I don't know which coast, I don't know where it came, I don't know where it hit. But I do know it's going to be 20 stories tall, at least. It's going to be that tall. That's probably about 20 stories. That's how tall that wave's going to be. The Prophecy Club was out in front warning and trying to get others to warn. So he grabbed a few ministries. That's what those ships represented. The different size, some were small, some were big. He got a few of them, not very many, to help start getting that warning out. But because he couldn't get enough of them, it could not stop the devastation. But at least it helped get the warning out where there were a few that were still leading others to the Lord. That was the interpretation. We can't stop it, but there still will be some that are saved. At least there's some good news in that one.
Just take it back to there is not a reason more to live. This is all the love my spirit can give. Just take it back to there is not a reason more to live. This is all the love my spirit can give. Just take it back to there is not a reason more to live. This is.
And so I'm announcing to the four winds of the earth, to the four corners of the earth, that I've seen a huge tremblor, a huge earthquake happen, and I see a boat sinking, and I see a lot of water splashing on me as I'm running, splashing as in a storm. But that water, now I understand, comes as the earthquake, the effect of the earthquake, tsunami, causing a tsunami to come on the land, and people are running. I've run already for my life. And I've seen a lot of insects like flies.
I was 15 years old. I had a dream that a tsunami hit New York. This was before all of the asteroid/end time movies came out. I remember very clearly that I was standing in the middle of Times Square, and directly in front of me was that big TV screen on a building. The next thing I realized was that there was a massive wall of water coming toward me from behind the screen. I don't remember anything after that, but that dream has stuck with me for 18 years now. At that time, I really believed that the end was near, but things just didn't add up. Numbers didn't add up, and I remember there wasn't a sense of urgency like there is now. And I felt the same way when I first started having mine. I was like, you know, I'm being shown this, like the end is really near. But I didn't have the urgency. I started having mine back in, this was 97 for her, and it was 99 for me. And I didn't get into any of that Y2K or 2012 or any of that stuff. Like, I didn't have the urgency that I do now, as you can see from this channel, if you've watched any of my videos, that the urgency is here now. It wasn't here then. You know, God gave me plenty of warning, plenty of time to prepare, but the urgency has come now. It started a few months ago, really a couple years ago, but the super duper urgency is like now. Don't wait, everybody, don't wait. Do what you have to do to get the word out, to help as many people as we can.
It would appear I was like either on a balcony or some type of rooftop, and I was talking either, I think, with one of my brothers. I'm still not sure who the person was, but I believe it was one of my brothers. I know it was a gentleman that was in my dream, and I was talking with him, and I remember looking out like across, like I could see across the city, and as I'm looking across the city, I mean far, like miles and miles away, I could see across the city. And I could see this tsunami covering the buildings. I mean, and it's rushing towards us. Like, it still had ways to get to us, but it was coming. And I knew, like in my spirit, that the tsunami wasn't going to get us. Like, we were protected. Like, we were safe. And I just remember it flooding over the city. And I remember feeling safe. Like, I felt like God was just showing me that, to show me that he was going to, you know, protect me. And then shortly after that, I woke up. But those dreams and vision, I wanted to share with you all. I just felt prompted to do it tonight. I just ask that, you know, you all just draw close to God. And if you don't know him, please get saved before these crazy times begin to happen.
In the vision, I was shown that the ocean is going to pour out its waters onto the land of the United States of America. And as it does this, the ocean was going to kill many people, and shortly thereafter, the rapture of the Holy Church of Christ would take place. In the dream, I even experienced the ocean outpouring process onto the land, and I was shown how the oceanic outpour was going to usher in the rapture of the bride of Jesus Christ. In fact, the message that was imparted in my heart in the 5th of January of 2012, that the rapture of the bride of Christ is very imminent, a more disastrous, catastrophic, deadly, destructive, never seen before tsunami is coming to hit the USA very soon.
I just wanted to make a quick video about a dream I had last night. I had a dream that I was in Miami, Florida, and I was on a beach, and we were playing music and just hanging out, me and a friend, and you know, just hanging out on the beach, trying to meet people and have a good time. And then I looked to the beach, and there was about a like 200 foot to 300 foot wall of water that started to kind of form. It was getting bigger and swelling up as the tide kind of receded into it. And there was no tsunami warnings. There was no, the horns didn't blow. And so that was kind of strange. And so I started to see this, and at the last minute, people didn't really notice until the very last moments. And I immediately just ran toward this. It was like a utility closet or some sort of stall, or it seemed like a cement utility closet. You know how the beaches, they have those cement, you know, little houses they usually house, you know, bathrooms or whatever. Well, this one was a utility closet, so it was completely sealed. Didn't have, like, any overhead space or anything. It was just basically a cement box. And so 3 people were in there, and I was like, dude, where can I go? And I called out to my friend, I ran into this little room, and we could hear, the wave kind of coming, and my friend, there was 3 people in there, no, there was 2 people in there, 2 or 3 people in there, and then a girl came in, and I was already in, and then my friend came in at the last second. We shut the door, and we told everyone, all right, hold your breath, because we thought the water was gonna, come in, but it would protect us from the wave itself. So at least we could possibly swim out or something. So the wave hit. We could see through the cracks of the door that water was starting to splash in, but we were okay. And then we're like thinking to each other, let's put our hands on these little on the spaces between the door and the floor and all that, so because there was a few people in there. And so we started to do that, and then all of a sudden the wave receded, and it was not completely receded. It was receded only about to the maybe mid-chest. So we opened the door, we all got out, and it receded actually pretty quickly in the dream. And then we ran to this building that was maybe 4 stories tall. It was kind of like a government building or something, because it was made out of like solid, like cement, had some columns or whatever. So we ran up, could have been a library, I don't know, but I knew we were in Tampa, Florida, or Miami, Florida, I mean. I knew we were in Miami, Florida in my dream, and we ran into this other thing, and then the second wave came, but it was a lot smaller, and we caught that on video on our phone, and then that wave receded, and yeah, that was pretty creepy. And so after that, the waves receded, we were just wandering around the beach, looking at the devastation, and I remember crying in my dream, like, all these people, these souls that are about this. I was thinking, this is the last event before the bride of Christ gets taken away and the Great Tribulation starts, and I was crying in my dream.
And on this particular date, I was in what I would call a sky cam. I was up in the air looking over it's almost like a interstate camera. I was looking down on an area, and I was in Huntsville, Alabama, facing Decatur and Tanner, Alabama, facing that way. And as I was watching, I saw bombs go off in Tanner, Alabama, in that area, north of Decatur. Definitely not, it was closer to Decatur than Huntsville. 2 days later, the tornadoes came through and hit Tanner, Alabama. Destroyed some houses there that I knew, people that actually lived in them, and neighbors, and damaged the people that I knew that were neighbors of the house that I lived in there. But during the dream, after I saw those bombs go off over near Tanner, I was raised up high above the earth and came to rest over Central Florida, North Central Florida. And I was looking at Jacksonville, Florida, and I could see water over Jacksonville, Florida. I could see bodies floating in the water, like in the city streets. There was water, but I could see people floating there, dead people. And it appeared that water had just come up over Jacksonville, Florida. Once I recognized what was happening there in the Jacksonville, Florida area, I was raised really high above the earth, and the earth spun, or I moved, one of the two, went all the way around to Japan, and came to rest right over Japan. And once I identified it as Japan, which I'm pretty decent with maps, I woke up. Now, there's things coming to this nation as judgments of God. I believe that I saw a tsunami for Jacksonville, Florida. Based on seeing other people's dreams and revelations about that, I believe it's going to be bigger than necessarily just Jacksonville, Florida. You can also look on your television and see that, matter of fact, they're doing movies about tsunamis and things like that. What I'm trying to get to, and I'm trying to just make sure people understand this, and make sure that we understand that in our flesh, in our physical beings. There's things coming on this earth. Everything's going to be shaken. You know, right now, maybe you have a job, and maybe you got a house, and maybe you got a family, and everything's going great, and Byron sounds stupid and crazy. The things that are coming on this earth are going to be too big for you.
A lot of people sitting around us doing the same thing, just kind of eating, drinking, you know, enjoying talking to their friends, their loved ones that were sitting with them. But as we were sitting there and we were finishing our dinner, we all of a sudden started hearing sirens going off in the city of New York. And the sirens were evacuation sirens. And my husband looked at me and he goes, Melissa, he goes, we need to go get our things and get out of the city. He goes, we need to go home. And I said, yeah. I said, I am in complete agreement. I said, we need to leave. Now, as we were going back into our hotel, I did look around at the skies and everything looked normal. It looked like a nice normal evening. There really didn't look stormy, anything like that. So, but we did leave. So after that portion of the dream then, God showed me a very large tsunami coming into New York City. Now, this tsunami was so large that it completely put New York City, the coastal part of it, was completely underwater. Now, in the dream, God took me down underneath the water, and even the tallest of buildings were covered by at least 20 feet of water or so, or maybe even a little bit more. I also had asked the Lord, because when we were sitting outside eating dinner, people weren't getting up from their tables. They weren't even, wanting to leave. And I asked God, I said, why aren't people evacuating? Why aren't they packing and getting out of here?
In this dream, we lived right on the coast, and as we looked out at the ocean, all the ocean water receded, and I knew this was very bad, so my wife and I got out of town as quickly as we possibly could. I could see, though, people in their houses, and many people were acting like nothing was going to happen, and I thought to myself, how odd. These people are still watching TV, they're still on their computer, as if they either don't know or they don't care what's about to happen. Also in this dream, I saw my notebook, which looks like this, and it's where I record everything that the Lord shares with me, and every single place that the Lord had ever given me a dream of a tsunami, the wind was blowing my notebook to those pages. And I knew in my dream this was confirmation that this was going to happen. I am not someone who tries to predict the future. I'm not predicting if this will happen on a certain date. All I'm sharing is what the Lord gave me in this dream.
Especially those, like I was saying, who lived in my hometown. I grabbed the closest friends that I could and tried to put them in the boat. And I don't know if it's because I was being shown, I think what next scene is what I was being shown was going to happen to those who remained in this tsunami. This tsunami, there was like a beginning stage of this tsunami. You know, when a tsunami comes in sometimes, maybe the first wave is not as strong as what's coming. Like maybe the shock wave formed a small wave. So there was already tsunamis taking out the people, forming rivers before the main water even hit, guys. So as it started to happen, guys, as we all started to wash away down this like a river, it was a tsunami, but we were like in the river. Like so, and we were like being pulled down this river, and I noticed that I have, you know, I have a 7-year-old little girl who lives, you know, far away with her mom, and she kept going under the water, and I was so worried that she was going to drown. And 3 times she went under the water, so I think this is also symbolic. So I thought to myself, man, when this big wave comes, she is not going to make it. So what I did is I went, and I think this is also symbolic, I went to look for a rope. As I'm in this river, I don't know how I'm looking for a rope in the river. I think I got out of it somehow. To get a rope, and I tied it to her. That way, if we were taken under the tsunami, that I could pull her up. But like I said, I think this is really symbolic with the 3. I think it's symbolic with the rope. So as I tie this rope to her, guys, kind of like a surfer, if like a surfer would tie his little rope band to like his surfboard, this is what I was doing to my little girl. And then I noticed another set of false prophets, and they're actually in the water, and they're like drowning under the water. But even though they're drowning under the water, they are still goofing off, they are still distracting, and they are still preaching false doctrine, even though they are under the water in a tsunami. Which was crazy. I mean, just to think about that, you know, I'll let you guys interpret that yourself, but I can come up with so many ways to interpret that alone. You're in a tsunami, and you're still goofing off, and you're still preaching false doctrine, and you're still not looking, and you're still leading people astray. Then I started to think to myself, you know, not even death itself could bring these people to repentance. Not even being in the middle of death would bring them to repentance. And while everyone was distracted, guys, while everybody was being distracted, the waves came and washed over the people.
the dream, Amber and I were standing outside this hotel, and we were talking, and everything was normal, and I kind of looked over her shoulder, and behind her I could see this pool of water, like maybe we were by an ocean, and all of a sudden I saw this tsunami start rising up out of it, and I could see that there's going to be a huge wave once it reached its full capacity. It was going to be a huge wave. And we turned around and we saw what was coming. We saw the danger that was coming. And we both just kind of stopped and we started running towards the hotel. Well, it felt like we were running in slow motion. Like, are we going to make it? Are we going to get there in time? Are we going to die? Are we going to be swept away? So we got to the hotel door and we opened the first door and it opened and we went inside. And then there was a second door that led into the atrium. And then there was like, it was like 10 stories open on the inside. And you could see the different levels. The different floors would kind of come into this atrium. But then the atrium was open. And there was a stairwell going up the center. And then there was elevators that people were in line for to go back up to their rooms. And so we started running up the stairs. We knew we didn't have time to take an elevator and we didn't want to be stuck in an elevator. So we started running up the stairs, and as we were running, I started screaming at the top of my lungs, people, you're in danger, watch out, there's a tsunami coming, watch out, you're in danger, you're gonna die, you've got to flee to higher ground. And this is as we're going up the first floor, I would yell to the people I could see on the first floor around me. Over here was like a restaurant, and over here was like a cafe. And all these people with just these blank stares were just staring back at me doing nothing. They couldn't see the danger. I saw the danger firsthand, and I was there to warn them. And they weren't listening. And so I kept going upstairs, floor by floor, up the stairs, and yelling at the different people, run to your rooms, go to higher ground, you're in danger, you're going to die. And there were just a few people that were listening, just a very few that were taking heed to the warning and actually getting up and doing something and going to higher ground. Well, I would say we were like on the 6th or 7th floor at this time, and I could see the water starting to come in the hotel, and then I could see people starting to panic. But we were already up, and we were almost to the top, and we got to this place where we could no longer see down below us. We couldn't see what the fate of those people was anymore, but we knew that they were probably going to die, they were going to perish, because they didn't take heed to the warning. So we got to the top, and when I'm at the top, I don't really remember Amber I don't remember talking to her, but I think she was still with me. But I do remember this guy who was sitting on the stairwell with his little newborn baby, and they were just kind of taking a nap on the stairwell. And he had his baby like laying on one of the steps, and he was laying on the one below it. And I told him, and he like jumped up and ran with us. And he was one of those few people that listened to the warning and took heed to the warning. And so we got up to the place where we could no longer see down below us and see what was happening. Those people that were getting swallowed up by the water and drowning and dying. And so we got up to this room, and we knew we were at the highest place possible. And when we got in this room, I just remember it being me at this point. I don't really remember Amber being in there, but maybe she was. When we got up there, I was like the first one in there, and I realized, I looked around, I saw that there was provision. Like, everywhere I looked, I opened these closet doors, and there was backpacks and life vests and strollers, because I have 2 kids, and so, I was thinking about what are my kids going to need. And I looked around this room, there was bicycles, folding chairs, stroller attachments for the bicycles. I mean, there was everything we were going to need to survive in the natural after this disaster happened. So I could see that God provided after this disaster for those of us who were obedient and took heed to the warning. And I started just loading stuff up in these big bags, and because I knew my husband was going to be there in a few minutes and he would help carry the bags out. So I was trying to get everything ready, get everything that we needed. And I was doing this, and more people were starting to trickle in, and they were starting to realize that there was all this stuff here, and they had provision too.
I saw buildings that were floating upon the land. Matter of fact, I could hardly see any land around me, but I knew that I knew that the water from the ocean had come upon the land. And so you just know this in your dreams. And I can recall seeing things from a distance. I recall seeing objects floating in the water. I was more or less like a witness, or like a witness to this event that was taking place. And it was, for some reason, I knew, and only because the Lord God will let you know that, the Spirit of the Lord, I knew that I was not going to die. And but I did. It was a fearful thing to look and see the water all upon this land. That was that was the first dream I had, and that was in 2010. Then in 2011, from 2011 to the beginning of 2012, I had one dream this year. I had two dreams in 2011, water on the land, and one just several weeks ago. So dream number 2, which was in 2011, my family and I were driving through this mountainous region. And the funny thing about that is it resembles the Central Coast. I'm originally from LA, but this resembled the Central Coast where I live now. And I remember there were mountains on one side of me, and the other side of me there were mountains as well. There was some flat land, and then there were mountains kind of in the distance. And I look back, and there were in the car, we were driving a car, there were very, very few other cars on this road. And I remember looking in the rear view a lot. And as I look back, I could see a tsunami forming. The water had begun to rise in the great distance. But very quickly, the water began to move upward toward the car. It began to move upward toward the car, toward me. It had not reached the car yet, but I could see the water from a distance. The waves looked to me, and I don't know if I'm the best judge, but it looked to me like they were at least 25 feet up in the air. And 25 feet, and I mean above ground level, 25, 30 feet, maybe more than that. It was high enough that it could swallow up cars or houses. And I could see this water rushing behind us, and as where it traveled from a distance out in the ocean to it quickly arriving on the shores of the beach and then on the land where we were. And I was watching this in the rear view. There were people in the car with me, and I remember there were some family members, and as we began to rush to try to get away from this, I can remember this confidence in my spirit that we were not going to die. And it was just a confidence there. And as that water rushed toward the back of the car, I could see it. And I mean, it had covered the land. I remember thinking, we're going to be saved. And as I was thinking that, the car that we were in was lifted up, supernaturally lifted up out of the way, or out of harm's way from the water. And I remember thinking, I don't know if we're getting ready to go to heaven or where we're going to go. That was dream number 2. I had this dream also in 2011. And shortly after that, there was dream number 3. Dream number 3 was a little bit different, but it was the same thing, water on the land. This time God showed me, I was in a house, and again, there were family members in the house with me, and there were also others in the house with me that were not family. And water was starting to come up on the floor of the house, and it was starting to rise slowly. And I remember I was in a hallway, and I was rushing in this hallway to warn my people, get out, we've got to get out of here. And there was a very strange event that took place. As I entered, there was a doorway in the hall, and I opened the door. And when I opened the door, to the left of me was a little space, almost like a closet space in a room. And then there was another door. And I opened the second door, and the second door, literally, I was looking at waves. It was just like it was like opening the door, and a wave of water was ready to rush into the house. And I can tell it was a powerful wave. It wasn't like I saw a wave in a distance. It literally was at the door, but it was at a standstill. Something, I know it was God, had commanded that wave to stand, just like in the miracle of the children of Israel walking through the Red Sea. That water was standing upright, and it did not rush in on me. It did not rush into the house, and it was standing there, and I knew that I was supposed to hurry and get out of there and get my family and anyone else that wanted to come to get them out of there. And so I closed the door back, knowing that that water was waiting to rush into the house. And I began to gather my family quickly. All this was happening fast. And I was telling them, come on, we got to get out of here. And there were two young men, I remember, that were in the house. And they kind of joked around. They were, I guess they were mocking. They didn't take seriously what I'd said to them. And so as family rushed to get out of there, and there was a van parked, and we were supposed to get in this van and drive to safety, I remember I went back in there, and it seemed like on the right of me, it seemed like my son was standing there. One of my sons was standing there like he was looking to, I don't know if he was looking to help somebody or something, but I said, get in the car. And the two, he was looking at the bodies. The two young men that I had warned and told them to get out, they had drowned. And I don't know how, it happened, the way God did it, but they had drowned, and I remember looking at their bodies, and I told my son, matter of fact, it was my son, and one or two others suddenly appeared, and I said, we've got to get out of here, let's go. And we all went, and we piled in this van, and we took off, and we were driving to safety. And we ended up, I don't know why, but we ended up in Las Vegas. And I thought that was the strangest thing, but in Las Vegas, for some reason, and Las Vegas is desert now that I think about it, but in Las Vegas, there was no tsunami there. And we, how dreams are, I quickly ended up, almost as soon as we pulled off, we were pulling up in this territory of Vegas, and I woke up shortly after that. So, again, remember, in all these dreams, notice that I'm safe, and my family is safe. And that's a message that the Father wanted me to see. And so wanted me to comprehend that. Now, the dream number 4, there was a fourth dream. Now, in the fourth dream took place this year of 2012. Mind you, these were 3 dreams within 1 year's period of time. The same dream, water in the form of a tsunami coming on this land. In this fourth dream, it was very odd, but I was driving in the city of Long Beach, and I was by myself, and I remember there were people out, there were hotels and things on the side of me, and on the left side of me there seemed to be residential areas, and I was in an unfamiliar area because I'm pretty familiar with Long Beach City. But as I was driving, I seemed to be driving eastbound on the road, on this highway that I was on, and there were a couple of dips in the highway. I remember I was supposed to pull over something. I had a divine instruction to pull over and get off the road, and I could see, as I looked in the rearview mirror, I could see behind me water. And I don't mean a puddle of water, I don't mean a couple of feet of water, or water that's just enough to wash over a house. It was an ocean of water. Again, water was beginning to flood. It was going to flood the land behind me. And so, as this water was going to flood the land behind me, I remember the kind of panic that I, felt, but at the same time, again, I knew I wasn't going to die.
I saw California destruction. I saw mudslides, eroding shorelines, and people in huts. In this dream, I simply saw that what looked to be the entire coast was eroding away, the entire coastline. There was a mudslide. I could see another house. I could see other housing and apartment communities that were eroding, and it was drawing closer to. So as they were eroding, they were falling into the sea. I saw what looked to be a neighborhood of tents. There was this community of tents. And they were actually straw huts, believe it or not. They looked like gathered sticks and straws that people had made to shield themselves from the chilly weather. And it was coming across the land. And I could see a lot of people walking, tired, they were dirty, they were carrying firewood. And while this was happening, I could hear in my ears that they are cold. And I see this, I'm not going to try to reason, I just have to write down everything that I can remember from the dream. And as they were carrying these sticks, and they just looked like someone from a third world country, these places, you can't even call them tents. These tents have been made out of little shrubble sticks. And they were walking. It was tons of people. Women were holding their children's hand. They were carrying sticks and little firewood. And then I heard the words, "They are cold." And at that point, I opened my eyes. Another dream. Definitely I saw West Coast and East Coast tsunamis. And this dream was dated February the 3rd of 2015. In this dream, I was shown a tsunami on the West Coast and on the East Coast. I saw this because I am always shown the landscape. I was first shown a tsunami consuming parts of the East Coast, going through trees and inland. It was smashing through trees. People were driving through cars and you could see the water coming, and they were trying to race through the curvy streets. But the water was just coming spread out, and it was overtaking people on these streets through these trees. Then I was flashed, moved to another coast. This coast was a beach. I knew this was California. I knew this was West Coast. It was a sunny day. And suddenly someone noticed a wave. And I keep telling you, I'm in the place. I was standing on the beach right next to the people. Yet I could see far out too. Suddenly someone noticed a wave coming in the distance, moving quickly. And I saw what they call the white line of the tsunami, that really bubbly white water. Real huge. The waves sparkled in the sun. It was a perfectly sunny day. The sky bluer than I've ever seen. Some people tried to run. The other people stood there. They knew it was no use in running. And I heard someone say, "This is the end." And it echoed in my ears a few times, like amplified echo, and then I opened my eyes. The next dream, dated right after this one pretty much. It was March the 4th of 2015, and tsunami, and I kind of just labeled it California, people drowning in water. And this was the second vision I had on this, because I had two of them back to back of this very thing. It was almost repeated, but in different locations in California, where people were being taken out of their bed while they slept at night. Literally, you could feel the water come up behind them. It's like you could feel it drawn in on them. They were laying there sleeping, the lights were off, and you could feel it coming in on them before it just crashed through the house. In this dream was short, and it was the second one like it. There was a large tsunami wave, and people who were warned. In this dream, I knew people had been warned. People who were warned and didn't listen. Some laughed. I simply saw the waves as it hit. As always, I am put there in their place. I'm able to feel what they feel and see what they see while looking on simultaneously. I felt the water enter their lungs as they were sucked under the water, violently sucked under the water. I could see through their eyes as they looked up from beneath the water, reaching for help. They were reaching up. You could see the sun on top, and some of them were dark because they were being flashed from scenes, and I could see through their eyes as they were being sucked down beneath the water and water filling their lungs. They reached up